What is up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we are ranking the discography of Queens of the Stone Age. And hey, if you'd like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Alright, kicking things right off with the self-titled Queens of the Stone Age album, and I do have most of these, actually. I've been pretty long time listener. This album it's pretty solid for a debut. I wouldn't say it's quite as memorable as some of the later releases and some of my favorites, but it's pretty darn consistent. Like, lots of great tracks, not really any bad ones. My personal favorite on here, Regular John, got some... right from the beginning, that like unquestionable just Queens of the Stone Age guitar sound. And then of course, Josh Homme's vocals, they have such a just unique take. And their guitar work, even though it's simple, like you immediately like hear the tone and the playing style and you just know who it is. And I just always think it's kind of neat with artists like that. But yeah, because I'm going to be definitely ranking some of the later albums higher for sure, I'm going to go ahead and put that one at B tier, though. But I still think that is a pretty solid one. And then we can move right along to Rated R, roughly 2000, and I really like this album. Like this one to me is one of my personal favorites. Like being such a metalhead too, I appreciate that it has some really kind of heavy moments on it, much due to Nick back when he was in the band. Say what you will about him, and it's totally fair in terms of what you think of him personally, but as far as like what he contributes to the sound, he really does bring this just raw heaviness to it. But I love this opening track. Just this like nihilistic, just ode to drugs, basically. Cocaine! I do cocaine! And I love how it just like escalates over time. Just classic kind of rock and roll track. I like Better Living Through Chemistry. Cool little hand drums on this one. Kind of like this trippy, like psychedelic haze of a track. One there. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, back to the heavy, we've got Quick and Pointless, which is just kind of funny, but it gets me every time. Like, it's sort of a throwaway track. Everybody, everyone, let's go! I love this one. It's super fun. Like, it could have just even been seen as like a joke almost, but no, it's just adds extra flavor. Tension Head, bringing those classic Queens of the Stone Age hooks. They're a band too where like you end up singing along with the guitar line just as much as like the vocal line. But yeah, I really like Rated R. It took me a minute to kind of get into it because I got into them with a later album. We'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, overall, I would actually put this at the top of their discography. I think it's very consistent. It's got a lot of great standout moments too, and it just like showcases every element of what I like about Queens of the Stone Age. But moving on to Songs for the Deaf, and I think like many people, this was the album where I initially got into Queens of the Stone Age. This was kind of their big breakout album, largely thanks to No One Knows hitting the radio. Down, down. You just can't unlearn that guitar part. Like, that hook lives on in infamy. I will say, when I first heard that song, I hated it. Like, that was one of the songs that they played on the radio so much, and I was just like, I fucking hate this song. I don't like this. But then, like, over time, it started to, like, get its hooks into me, and then they dropped Go With The Flow. This little subtle piano line underneath, too. Kind of the different guitar style, too, on this one. And a little bit more space to it. It's a little less repetitive, I would say, than No One Knows. Like, No One Knows is probably their best known song, but it's by no means their best. Like, honestly, as far as singles go for them, I would put it pretty close to the bottom, but I like Go With The Flow, and the opening track here, too, once you get past the little mood-setting intro. Another one of their heavier tracks. Give it to him, give me some more. It's just so much attitude, but it's kind of like smooth too at the same time. Again, great riffs. So yeah, this is a solid album. I see why this one blew up, and it's got other solid tracks on it too. Song for the Dead is pretty fun, but it's also pretty inconsistent. I mean, you've got over an hour of music here, and not all of it is great. There are some ones that I consider to kind of be duds, kind of feel like filler. And so, yeah, for that, it kind of brings it down a bit for me. So I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, but I would put that about a B tier as well. A little bit above the debut, but there are just other albums that I think are better in their discography. And so let's get on over to them. So then we've got Lullabies to Paralyze, 2005. If I have my dates right, sometimes I mess them up. Another great album. Great follow-up to that album. And for my money, like quite a bit better, too. More standout tracks, more consistent. Still over an hour, though. So pretty impressive there. But we got Medication. More great just fuzzy guitars on this one. I always think of Queens of the Stone Age with stuff like that too, where it's like na 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 na. Little Sister, the little wood block at the beginning, which, by the way, if you don't know this, they performed this on SNL with Will Ferrell doing the like cowbell sketch thing for the wood block. Very appropriate. But yeah, this is a great single. Just very catchy, like the perfect just radio song. Someone's in the Wolf for something a little bit of a deeper cut. And getting a little heavier in places. A little spooky too. Lots of cool little like just noodly guitar riffs on this one too. Then you got more deeper cuts too. Tangled Up in Plaid. More of spooky atmosphere. Everybody Knows That You Are Insane. Great title. Broken Box. Yeah, this is a great album. Really solid follow-up, and it's better, I think, than Songs for the Deaf. Not quite S tier. I know some people would put this at S tier, and it's pretty close. I'm going to go ahead and put it at A tier, though. Then moving along to 2007, we have Era Vulgaris, or Vulgaris, and I really love this album. Like, this is personally one of my favorites, and again, I'm not sure if that's a controversial take. I recall when this came out, a lot of talk from Queens of the Stone Age fans about how it's like not as good, and I just don't get it. I really don't. Like, it's fantastic. I love Turning on the Screw, great opener with that weird like screw turning kind of sounding guitar. Sick Sick Sick, another one of my personal favorite songs from them of all time. Great little, like almost like an Architect's blast to open a track up. More great riffs. Simple but effective. Again, like they're just basically playing the same chord over and over again, but it's how it's syncopated with the vocals. Then this great part. Threes and Sevens. This track will forever be etched into my mind because of, I believe it was on Rock Band. It might have been Guitar Hero, but I think this one was on Rock Band. And another one that's over an hour, but has just so many bangers and is incredibly consistent. Like, I can enjoy both listening to individual tracks and also just sitting down and giving it a full listen. Lots of different textures, but it all kind of comes together. Stays strong in the second half. And I love, like, yeah, you got Suture Up Your Future with this, like, more spacey, almost like, I don't know how to describe it, just like this, like, lounge kind of element to it. River in the Road. If you have the bonus track, too, you've got the title track, which is all, like, industrialized on the remix version. My understanding is that Trent Reznor was involved on this track. I don't know if it's this version, but I remember reading that. All that to say, again, let me know in the comments if this is a controversial opinion, but I would put that at S tier. One of my personal favorites, perhaps my personal favorite one to just go back to and re-listen to over and over again. And then we got Like Clockwork, which was a long time coming. We had a bit of a gap here, which I think is part of the joke of the title. Because, you know, like clockwork, you're churning it out, but there's a sudden, 6-year gap between these albums. Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters was involved on this one, along with a number of other people. This was another album where I saw a lot of mixed reactions to it, and I also hear a lot of people just straight up say they don't like this one, and you know what? You are wrong. You are dead wrong. It is definitely a different type of album for them. A lot more kind of slower plotting tracks, but just listen to that. Like, listen to the mood and that bass. There's so much attitude in there still. I love this opener. But that bass is just so good. And the way it like slowly escalates over time. If I Had a Tail too is another fun one. Like, it's catchy, but it's just like it gets under your skin a little bit slower. And I will admit this was definitely a grower. But I also describe this as, like, this is their David Bowie album. Like, Josh sounds like David Bowie on much of this album, and I feel like the songwriting is very much aligned with that. Which is kind of funny, because now Foo Fighters, at the time of recording this, their latest album was very inspired by David Bowie. But I would say, honestly, like Clockwork is much more of a David Bowie album overall. Yeah, My God is the Sun, great track. I believe they played this at, like, a music awards ceremony with a bunch of people. Yeah, great riffs on that one. I Appear Missing. It's a great later song. It's just so, like, it's gorgeous, and the production is so full. I think this is just a stunning album that I could almost put at S tier. It's like teetering right at the edge, but at bare minimum, it's at A tier. And to be totally honest, overall, I think it's a stronger work as a whole than Lullabies to Paralyze, or even some of their other classics. So I could even potentially like bump it up here. It's up there. It's up there. So yeah, if you don't think you like Clockwork, go back and give it a re-listen. I always encourage people to do that. And most of the time what I find is people come back to me and they're like, holy shit, you were right. Like, I was missing out. All right, and then the only album I don't actually have in my collection is 2017's Villains. And coming off that last album, I had high expectations, but you know, as Queens of the Stone Ages want to do, complete 180. Like, they're a band that just kind of does what they want to do, and I respect them for that. But switching from this big, atmospheric, moody, David Bowie-esque stuff to this very stripped back, like, this is basically just like a rockabilly album. And it, to be honest, like, I don't think it's very good. Compositionally, it's just not as interesting. You know, I kind of get, it seems like I get what Josh was going for, and that he was just, you know, tapping into that classic, you know, 50s, 60s rock and roll vibe. And it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just not for me, but I haven't seen a lot of love for this album. And for me, it's easily my least favorite. Again, that's why it's not in my collection. I don't really enjoy re-listening to it. I listened to it quite a bit when I was reviewing it when it came out. Even I've had moments where I'm like, maybe I was wrong. And I went back and I listened to a few tracks and I'm like, nope. Like, still just not really into this. Again, highly respect the band for just doing what they want to do, regardless of maybe what the fans want, but it's just ultimately not for me, I guess. And that's it, y'all. Those are my rankings of the Queens of the Stone Age albums. If you want to know just in order, taking the tiers out of it, as always, it goes from left to right, bottom to top. So, you know, we go here, dun, 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 is the way it kind of works out. And this band has a consistent enough discography that there's some wiggle room in terms of where some things go. But that's basically it. Check out my other tier list videos. I got a whole playlist of these, actually, that you can check out. That'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.